Okay, Mishlei 22:6, day 2. Chinuch l'na'ar al pi darko gam ki yazkin lo yasser mimena. Train or guide. That's like one way to translate chinuch, and then the other one's inaugurate the youth according to his way. And we said maybe his way with a capital H, but not sure. And then gam ki yazkin, even or also when he becomes old, lo yasur mimena, he will not deviate from it. Unclear whether the it is from his way or from the chinuch. Really, grammatically, it is from his way, right? Because chinuch is not a noun; chinuch is a verb. All right. Saadia Gaon said, "Chinuch es hana'ar lefi erech gilo, train or inaugurate the youth in accordance with the value or level of his age. Kedei she'im yaskin, in order that if he grows old, lo yasur mi chinuch, so that if he grows old, he will not deviate from that training or inauguration." Yeah. Okay. So our questions were a lot of questions here. Questions were. What does chinuch mean in this context? What is the difference between chinuch and limud or musa or tochacha or hora or other teachly words? So we said, people usually translate as teach the youth according to his way, but train or inaugurate is a more specific lashon. So what do we get out of that specificity? 2, what does derech mean in this context? And what is darko? What does that mean? That's a central question. 3, what is a na'ar in this context? Is this a mishlei archetype or is this an age range? How does the kid's individual mentality factor in? 4, who is the audience? Is this talking to parents, teachers, mentors, role models? Who is included here? I guess part of that is also like what kind of training, which is you could lump into the first question also. 6, what does deviate mean in this context? What does it mean lo yasur mimena? 7, why and how would he deviate if this pasuk were not applied? Meaning, what happens if you don't implement it? The implication is he would deviate. So why, and then how, and what? What is? How would he deviate? Meaning, what would be the mechanism, not just the impetus? 8, what is the opposite of the pasuk? What would it mean to be chinuch l'na'ar shelo al pi darko? 9, what is the havamina? Is it that you would think he wouldn't deviate, or is it you would think that there's some other method that you should use? There's kind of like an overlap between these 3 questions, but there's a lot of overlap here. 10, how does the strategy prevent him from deviating? 11, is this true? And then it seems like there are times when people are educated correctly and then they deviate. So what do we make of those exceptions? And then 12, what does mimena refer to? Is it the chinuch or the derech? I'm going to X that out grammatically because of the reason I just said, which is I think it's the derech. Yeah, because just grammatically it has to be that, I think. Okay, so we could review what we said yesterday, but I think because the Mefarshim are going to kind of cover that. Well, actually, let's see. Hold on just a second. Yeah. The Mefarshim are okay. Well, let's review what we did yesterday. Okay. Yeah. You want to see yours?
Well, I was gonna just like add something.
Yeah.
But I guess we could add it after the review.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. You can say yours.
You were saying that like it has to do with like training in terms of like you want them to be doing activity.
Yeah.
So that they can experience that firsthand.
Right.
Because education is great, but it's very abstract for a child.
Right. Right. So you create experiences because kids' experiences will affect their emotions and establish habits, that will last longer. Whereas if you try to impose something that is not age appropriate, like intellectually abstract, and that's not going to really reach them. And we give examples of that, of like, my Rabbi Sachs example of like training the 6th graders to build the sukkah. That has a big impression on them. Or like people have like childhood impressions of like their, how their parents like inculcated them into mitzvahs or whatever, Yeah. All right. So then you had your idea, which I'm going to try saying it again just because I want to make sure that I get it correctly. So you led with the prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child. I'm nervous I'm going to say the wrong one. So that means that people who prepare the road for the child are parents who basically, usually well-intentioned, want to remove any obstacle or cause of pain from their child's path. And so that's very, very nice from an immediate experiential level because the kid's not going to suffer pain. But the problem is you've created a kid who can't deal with reality, and when they hit a roadblock, then they can't do anything about it because they haven't been given the tools to deal with it. But if you prepare the child for the road, that means you give him the tools that he's going to need to be able to overcome or utilize obstacles in line with his natural what his interests, his derech. Well, we didn't really define that exactly so well. And so you're equipping him, but then you were saying that that's on the basis of chanoch, of inaugurate, of you have to start him off, give him the firm basis with that. It's not talking about, in other words, it's not talking about how you educate him at every step of the way. It's talking about how you initiate his education. Yeah.
And the darko is, I was defining that as like his path, like whatever path he ends up taking in life.
Yeah.
That a lot of times the reason why people deviate from what they want to do is because they reach obstacles and they don't know how to deal with them.
Right.
And so that's what's causing him to deviate from his path.
Right. Okay. Right.
Give him the proper tools in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so now he comes across this obstacle and he's like, he gives up.
Okay. Good. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I forgot that you explained the second half that way. Yeah.
I'm gonna have an example of that.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not sure if it's accurate or not, but like like when I was growing up, like at least especially in my culture, like the parents were like, okay, you have to be a doctor.
Yeah, right.
That's a great job in the world. Yeah. Like, but at the end, but that's not for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I can't be a doctor. But you have to be a doctor, a successful, doctor or accountant or some.
Yeah, so I feel like that's going to overlap with Sean's idea and probably other approaches that we're going to take, because I think a lot of the commonalities of the mistake that the teacher's making here is imposing something that's not natural to the kid, Yeah.
And I also wanted to add something to what I was saying.
Yeah.
That I wonder if it has to do if it also has to do with like your mental age. I'm gonna say mental age.
Okay, sure.
Because like I don't know if it's necessarily specific to like a 6-year-old versus like a grown-up who may like have the mind of like a 6-year-old too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that like he may absorb things in like a way a 6-year-old would too.
Right. So this is part of our question of who is the na'ar. So I'm gonna actually add that here. Is it mishlei archetype or an age range? Or a mental / like maturity age range, because you could have someone who's like you could have someone who's like a 20-year-old nar, or a 30-year-old nar, like not like that he's due to his upbringing most likely,
Well, it's also not necessarily a bad thing to have. Like, you can have like a curiosity of a nar too, which is also
that's a good quality as well. Yeah. Or nar could just be in terms of like, let's say you're a nar in a certain area, like Rabbi Kiva starting learning when he was like 40 or whatever. Yeah. Okay, so let's start off with those with Saadia Gaon, who because we read it yesterday about the age thing, and I'm going to pair it with a Meiri. Okay, so you don't have Saadia Gaon's perush, so I'm just going to show it to you on the screen here. So Saadia Gaon says, and I actually quoted this yesterday, not knowing it was Saadia Gaon. He says, Kava Khan as Chinuch Chalakin. So it is he established here Chinuch by stages. I'm going to translate this as stages. Sheish laseis mehen lanar b'chol gil kfi cholas kibulo. That you have to give this training to the youth at every age according to his capacity to receive it. Kafish Amar al pidarko, as it says al pidarko. Okay, what's the example? Uba b'masores ki mechamish shanim ad eser shanim margilim oso b'mikra. From 5 years to 10 years, we accustom him to Torsh B'chsav. Va'ad chamesh esrei shana b'mishnah. And then from 10 to 15, you accustom him in Mishnah. Va'ad shmona esrei b'talmud. And then until 18 in Talmud. Va'ad esrim b'inyana hanisuin. And then up to 20 is in terms of marriage. Misham v'hala b'inyana hamilchama. Okay, it's funny he says milchama because that's the one that that's the first confusing one in that list, is it says ben shloshim lirdof. 30-year-old is to chase after. So I always was under the impression that's like a parnasa, but he says it's for war. It's a weird mission if you ever learn it, because it starts off sounding like it's an educational thing, but then like it goes way beyond education into like other stuff. So he's saying that it's talking about like a literal age, okay? And let's look at the Meiri, and then we're going to look at part of the Meiri and then work this out. So the Meiri on Vav says Hanigla v'Hanistar b'zeh echad. So the Nigla and the Nistar are the same, or one subject. Romez al shleimus hamidos. So he holds it's about midos specifically. Okay, and I think when he says midos here, I think he does mean like. Actually, I don't know. I was going to say I don't know if he means character traits and intellectual midos, or just like ethical character traits. I'm not sure. He'ara, the idea is liyos mechanech as beno lemusar or lemidas al pi darko, is that you should train your son for musar umidas. I think that's probably character traits. Al pi darko, according to his way. Klomar kafi darko haroi lo lafi shanav, the way that is proper for him according to his years. Ben 5 shanim karoilo, ben 10 shanim karoilo. 5-year-old, what's appropriate to him. 10-year-old, what's appropriate to him. V'gam ki yaskin lo yasur me'osan mida. And also, when he grows old, he will not deviate from that mida. So let's pause here. Okay, don't look at the next part yet. That part's a different one. So what is he saying, and what is the havamina here, right? And how do we take into account? Does he mean? Like we said, let's say you have a genius 5-year-old, right? So I would think that this is just giving general advice, right? That you should not train the genius 5-year-old in the same way that you would train the regular 5-year-old. So let's exclude exceptional cases.
Sheldon Cooper.
Sheldon from the Big Bang. Oh, I know the character. I resent the show, but yeah. I feel like of all the shows that I have been exposed to, I have a loathing for that show. I don't know why. It's all right. It's a popular show, but yeah.
I just know the character. He was a prodigy as a child, and people would treat him like a normal 9-year-old, but in reality, he has the mental capacity of
what show?
The Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's my reaction. Yeah. So what's the havamina here? Yeah, he's saying age appropriate education for midos. Okay, and specifically for midos. We know maybe we shouldn't even say this in terms of a genius, because genius is really in terms of what do you call intellect, and you can have child prodigies in intellect. I think it's much rarer to have a child prodigy in this 5-year-old has the maturity of a 30-year-old. Maybe you can have that, but I think it's rarer, but either way, we're gonna ignore the outliers. So what is the okay, I know the answer, but yeah.
I would thought even with outliers, and that would be just even if let's say he has the 5-year-old, but as the as a 30-year-old, he still does to be able to work on, you have to teach him how to work on things internally. So even if he's already at 30 years old when he's 5 years old, he still needs to be able to learn how to work on himself. Right. And so whether or not, no matter where he is, to actually be able to learn how to work on yourself, that needs to be taught to every kid.
Okay, right. So that pairs well with what Sean was saying, is that's another type of preparing for the road of there's the external obstacles, but then there's also your internal world. And you can equip someone very well with skills to negotiate obstacles in the outside, but that's not going to help you if you're stubborn or ambitious or egotistical or lazy. You've got the internal stuff that you have to work out as well.
Wait, isn't the answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Isn't the answer just simply because at a certain age you'll have certain characteristic traits that you just want to mold your teachings to that character? So that is what I'm saying. I'm asking, what is the mistake? What is what they're not doing that? Why do you need to tell someone to do this? What are they thinking? Because they're projecting their own.
Okay, right. Yeah. You want to add to that, or have a different idea? Okay, so the what this reminded me of is, and I've said this before. I'm going to keep saying it until people heed it. The most important shiur, in my opinion, that I have ever heard in this yeshiva, and that's a big statement, is Rebbe's NR parenting shiurim. Okay, there are 4 of them. And you have to listen to the 4th one's really only very, very short. You do have to listen to the first tape, even though he starts off talking about reasons why people become parents. So he doesn't really get into the meat of it until I was gonna say the second side of the cassette, but I don't know what the minute thing is. Yeah. In terms of there are many important ideas that I learned from the yeshiva, but in terms of changing my concept of myself and what it means to be a human, then the parenting shiurim are the most important shiurim. If you don't listen to that, then you're lacking in your entire life. And listen to it way before you even consider becoming a parent, because you have to parent yourself also, because it's, and even people who have good parents need to, good parents can only go so far. There's still your internal world. Anyway,
I'm golden. 12 years old.
See, that's a riot that you can have bad parenting. So the one of the major theories that Rabbi goes into here is what he calls the little man theory of parenting, right? That the biggest mistake he thinks that parents make is treating their kid like a little human being. Okay, right? Where you take an adult and he says, I think, like, I forgot his lashon, he's like, and you just miniaturize them, and then what happens is the adult relates to the kid in the same way that they relate to another adult. And he goes through tons of examples of this, but like let's say like the example that's the most amusing to me is he says like let's say you have like a 3-year-old kid and you have company over and the kid like takes off his clothing, right? So parents will freak out, and the reason why they freak out is they'll imagine, well, what if an adult did this? You got this weird perverted like person who's like taking off his clothing in public, and they'll react to the 3-year-old as though the 3-year-old is an adult doing that. Or another example is a little kid will say, I hate you, daddy, and the parent will react to that. How can you say that? Like, and they'll interact with the kid as though they're an adult, and again, this is a whole shiur, but like he goes on to explain how like, an adult is a different psychological structure. Like if you were an adult, in order to for most people, in order to verbalize to your parent that you hate them, or in order to get to the point where you would like do an act of aggression or like an overt, like take off your clothes, right? You have to break through so many psychological and societal barriers to the point where if you did do that, that it'd be indicative of something wrong. But the kid doesn't have these things. The kid doesn't know how people treat like violence and like stuff, So it's a huge mistake to impose like the midos standards or the maturity standards of an adult onto the kid. Or another example, like the slide, like the kid goes up, waits in line for the slide and gets up and like gets afraid when he's on the top and then wants to come back down. And the parent like has all these fears, like, well, if this kid is afraid now, he's going to be a coward when he grows up, And so he treats the kid as though this little thing that the kid is doing right now is indicative of how he's going to be when he grows up. So the point is that the parent has these adult standards that he's imposing on a kid who is not developmentally at that place yet, and the parent is not relating to the kid in that level on that level. So it is a very common mistake. Specifically, I mean, people do this in the intellectual sphere as well, but I think by now we do realize, like, you can't teach like a 5-year-old like calculus. Like I think if you just try, it's evidently not going to work. Here, the mistakes only show up, a decade later, and like, therapy pills, much later. So like, it's not really like evident that it's gonna, that the parent's making a bad decision there. Yeah. Okay. So it has to be age appropriate.
Did he get that from like a book somewhere, or he just started?
I mean, I think he gives a similar intro to what the Rambam says in his intro to Shmona Prakim, which is that the Rambam says, I'm going to quote. I'm going to be drawing upon the chachma of many chachamim, but I'm not going to name who I'm quoting from because it's going to prejudice people. So I think that he probably is drawing upon many different people. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So just a separate phenomenon.
Sure.
I think is also true here, which is that, and I'm speaking more from my own experience, right, which was when I was younger learning with my dad.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it was way too long.
Yeah.
And that also just like makes things difficult.
Right.
And like what happened is we would learn, and like he would pick this thing, and the point developmentally where he started, it was like this big thing that was just like I got overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
And if you start small and build up and build consistency, and then slowly like bring them in versus like jumping straight in or just like throwing them into something, that I think for children also is another way that like parents think, oh, I'll just like start and we'll like have a nice little chunk here, and not being in tune with whether or not their child needs more time, less time, those types of things.
Okay, good. So that works both for intellectual learning and midos learning. I think the fancy intellectual term, I'm half remembering this from grad school, which I did not learn much in grad school for education. But one of the things I think they call it the zone of proximal development, which means that, and they had fancy ways of explaining this, but like, let's say you could do stuff that is too easy for a kid, but then they're not going to develop. And you can do stuff that's too hard, and then that's going to be too overwhelming, or it's not going to work. You have to hit that sweet spot where you're like, it's like 80% what they're capable of, but then like 20% like pushing them beyond their capacity to the next level. And then that's when you're going to be, and then you have to keep it at that to develop them bit by bit, to the next level. So that's I think like the name that they have for that, but the concept is the important thing. Okay, I want to introduce the next thing in the Meiri with something that that I don't think has come up this year. Have we talked about Mishlei psukim that are saying falsehoods?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so we did one last year. This was a theory that I had, and I think I got it from myself, and then I found rayas for it, okay, which made me very happy. And I had not seen this raya for it until this morning, okay? So my theory is that sometimes Mishlei will tell you things, and it's really being sarcastic or false, and it's telling you the wrong decision, okay? So check out what the Meiri says. V'yesh mefarshim shuhu derech guzma, that this is by way of, now guzma usually means exaggeration. I think here sarcasm is the better translation. Min hatzivuyim habilti amitim. He says it outright. I've never seen him say it so clearly. Commandments that are not true. Okay. V'kavanasam l'shlilas inyan, and the intention is to negate the concept. V'lo l'chiyuvo, not to obligate you in it. V'amar, and it says chanoch l'na'ar al pi darko, educate the youth according to his way. Okay, klomar hargilehu lasos kafitivu urutzona v'lo tiasrehu, which means accustom him to act according to his nature and his desires, and don't rebuke him. Okay, v'da, and you should know im tasekin, that if you do this, gam be'es hazikna lo yaser mimena, then when he gets old, he's not going to deviate from it. Okay, so like he's basically telling the parent, like, and Rabbi talks about this on the parenting shiur also, that the worst thing you can do is spoil a child. Like, yeah, go ahead, yeah, let him do what he wants. Right, and what's going to happen is he's going to become stunted in his developmental level, and always he's never going to be able to do what he doesn't immediately want to do. And when he grows up, he's never going to outgrow that, because you've trained him to give into his desires and to not like be subordinate to anything else. Yeah.
Actually, I have a real life example.
Sure.
Like my cousin, his mom always just like gave him whatever, like no regard for whatever.
Yeah.
Also playing favorites, by the way, but that's like
that's another problem. Yeah.
but now he's like about to be bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
And, like everyone just hates it.
Oh, and it's only going to get worse. That's the tragic thing. Like the only way out is if he. Okay, I don't know if this is. I don't even know if this is a way out. Like if there's any sort of rebelliousness that makes him want to like develop his own identity in a way that like leads him to parent himself, maybe, but like is the hope.
You can't take this kid anywhere.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah.
His sister was calling his mom, and he wanted to talk to her. So he like hung up her phone and like called her. And then when she rejected his call, he hung up her phone again.
Yeah, it's bad. And this also is in line with what you were saying, with the mistake of, again, I think a lot of times this comes from a good desire on the part of the parent, that they want to create a life free of pain for their kid. But here's another idea from the parenting shiur. What is the what would you say? I'll just point blank question here. What is the goal, or the goal of parenting? If you had to boil it down, like what should the goal of a parent be? That's a diabolical laugh.
Make sure the kid
is that the kid has to live a good life.
Live a good life. Can you be more specific?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Raise them with tools.
Hold on just a second, Shua. Yeah.
Just like making them like as smart and good of a person as possible.
Okay, that's more specific, right?
Common sense wise.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay, so that is highlighting the two areas of perfection of like intellect, and then like decision making, and like how you treat people. So that's better. Yeah, Yoshua, what were you saying?
To like raise them with set them up in a way that they have tools to make their own decisions, so that when you're not parenting them, they
that's really good. That's really good. Yeah. Is the same thing? Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say teach them how to be in touch with the world and with themselves.
Okay. All right. So the answer, not that there's only one answer to this question. Yeah.
Train them to be independent thinkers.
Okay. So not that there's only one answer, but the answer that Rabbi gave in the parenting shiurim, is, what do you call? I think partakes of those things. Let me just see if I can find. Oh yeah. So this is so Yehuda Israf gave me as a birthday present one year. He made a transcript of the parenting shiurim. And so I don't think it was the whole thing, but it was really good.
Is this public? Is it?
I can share it. Yeah, it's not anywhere public right now.
My birthday's coming up in 2 months.
Hold on a second. Where's he stated though? Okay, well, hold on. I think he said it. Yeah. Oh, the objective of parents is to produce a child that is capable of coping with reality to the highest degree. Okay. And then he says, I use the word coping because intrinsic to man is stress, but the person that finds it easier to cope with reality is a better child. Therefore, a bad child will be one which cannot cope with reality. Sometimes parents try to solve this problem by creating a new reality that the child can cope with, but eventually they have to face the real world, and their inability to cope is a problem. Parents have a supreme responsibility to make sure that the child is capable psychologically to cope with reality. They must give them the best opportunity to see the true ideas. This should be first and foremost in the parent's mind. Children are not for the parent's own enjoyment. However, this does not mean that there is no enjoyment in raising children. And he goes on to do other stuff. So all the stuff that you guys mentioned of decision-making, independent thinking, like, all partakes of this as well. Yeah.
I think the best way to do it is just put them out there in the world.
I don't think so.
That's reality.
Yeah, no. So that I think he talks about that mistake also of like what happens is if you are thrown out in the world and it is a situation that you're not developmentally capable of coping with, what's going to happen is, first of all, you could be harmed, but secondly, you could develop an immature or ineffective way of coping. Let's say like hiding from reality. Like that's going to be a natural thing that kids do when they're exposed to something that's too stressful, and then that becomes implicated. Yeah. So the Meiri is basically, again, saying that this is sarcastically telling the parent, oh yeah, just let the child do whatever he wants. But what's going to happen is when he grows up, he's not going to deviate from that way of behaving, and you cannot live life that way, where you're just acting according to whatever you want, and like overriding other people's like you can't operate in our society, you can't operate like with inanimate things like that. It's just not going to work out. Yeah. Okay. Next is Rabbeinu Yonah, who I think is the closest to what Chaim Zifkin said, but he gives a beautiful it's a little long, but a beautiful account of like good training. Okay. Chaim Zifkin gave the analogy of the tree or the vine, right? If you mold the vine when it's growing, when it's a young shoot, then you can shape it. But once it is a full thing, then if you try bending, it'll break, right? Okay. Chinuch l'na'ar al pi darko. Targil ha'na'ar b'darkei hamidus hatovos v'haminhagim hamitukanim. Accustom the child this also is going to be similar to what you said, in the ways of good midos and good correct behaviors. Al pi haderech asher hu misyatev aleha, according to the derech that he is presently on. Okay, I don't know exactly how to translate misyatev aleha. Rotzalomar ki yachol l'lamdu l'hargilu b'tikun ha'inyanim asher toladto krova l'kabel tikunan. Okay, I think this is in line with what you were saying also, Sean, is that teach the kid and accustom him in perfecting these matters in a way where his nature is close or likely to receive correction. In other words, it's that zone of proximal development that we were talking about before. And accustom him to progress from subject to subject, umiderech lederech, and from path to path, al pi asher tasig yad sichlo, in what is in accordance with the capacity of his intellect, lakabel, to accept or to receive, v'yimtza b'koach toledas lahachil, and what he finds in his nature to be able to tolerate. You cannot reach perfection of midos instantaneously. I think that's another mistake parents make. It has to be slowly, and according to his intellect. Start from what is close to his nature and go to what is distant from it. That's what it means according to his way. So pause here for 1 second. So he's saying that it has to be psychologically and intellectually on his level, and you progress from what is onto his level to the next, to the next, to the next. But the mistake he's identifying as thinking you can get this perfection immediately. I feel like, and maybe it's just because I'm watching. Okay, I got to tell you another documentary recommendation. Okay, so there's this incredible documentary called the Up series. Okay, UP, like Up. So it was made in Britain, and they took a bunch of kids who were 7 years old, okay, and from different like classes in society, okay, and they interviewed them about like a bunch of stuff about life, like what is your feeling about like the opposite gender, like what do you feel about like wealth, what do you want to be when you grow up, like what, and they asked these 7-year-olds these questions, okay. Then 7 years later, they made a sequel called 14 Up, and they interviewed all the same kids again and asked them the same questions. Okay. And then they did 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, and then 63. I just started watching last night,
Was this a 63-year project?
So they're going as long as the director is alive, so the guy who like directed it is still like, he's older than they are. He must be in his 80s or something like that. And it is incredible / scary.
The same guys, the same actors.
These are not actors.
Same
kids. Yeah. Same kids, and it's crazy because what they do is with each successive one, then they show clips from all of the other episodes to like show like the progression and like have them reflect on what they were like beforehand. It's an incredible thing. And what happened basically was like, I discovered this right before 42 Up. So I watched all of them through 42 Up, and then I watched them in real time afterwards. So it was interesting watching all of them in one shot, like I did it over the course of like a week or 2 weeks or whatever. But then now I'm in the point where like every 7 years I watch them, and like it's been 7 years since I've seen them last, like since I've checked in on them, and like it's just a really like interesting human experiment. It's crazy, and I don't know how to recommend for you to do it. Like, should you watch all of them? I don't know. Like, but it's
where are they?
So unfortunately, so I used to get them. Okay, back in the olden days, Netflix used to be DVDs that they sent you in the mail, and I used to get them on that. And Netflix doesn't have them anymore. So I actually just did the free trial of something I never heard of on Amazon called BritBox. Okay, which is like this British, because this is a British documentary. So I'm using the free trial right now. So that's the only place online where it's a documentary. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna check. I have some places where it might be.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and it might be that the older episodes, it might be that the older episodes are available, but the current one is only available on BritBox right now. Like it's not anywhere like legally. Yeah. Anyway, why did I bring it up? Oh, because I was going to say that I think the like Victorian model of raising kids, of like taking, again, it's the little adult model. You take these like little like there's this the three kids, the three boys who they interviewed were like who were in the rich society, were like they were 7-year-olds saying like, I read the Financial Times and I want to read law in Cambridge and Oxford, and like it's like this you could tell that their parents are like imposing these like standards from their society onto these like little kids who just are, and the kids are like spouting things about like the way that the world works and stuff, not having any understanding about that. It's just so one of them developed horrible, not horrible, but like pretty bad like mental illnesses, and was like homeless for a couple of the episodes, another one did become successful, but he had a lot of conflict, and another one, his wife saved him in the sense that like he married someone from a different social class, and like that ended up working out because like she balanced him out, there are other cases where kids drop out of the program and then they come back later on, but because the thing is like they're kind of like celebrities in one of the guys who was in the thing I was watching last night was a cab driver, and he said he was had a passenger, Buzz Aldrin, okay, right, like the second man on the moon. And someone came up to them and said, "Can I have your autograph?" So he asked, "Mr. Aldrin, would you?" And he's like, "No, can I have your autograph?" And he like realized that he was like this celebrity. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, right. But because he's on the show, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that I was gonna say is a mistake that that people think that you can skip steps. That you can skip steps in, and this is not just a mistake in parenting or teaching. This is a mistake that people make about their own development. You cannot skip steps. And if you do, you're going to get the consequences. Like that's why they are steps. We said in the beginning of the week, we distinguish between illegitimate shortcuts and actual like life hacks. There is such a thing as finding more efficient ways to do things, but the mistake is that people just assume that you can skip steps and assume that it is a shortcut without any like consequences, and that's usually not the case. Yeah.
I'm also just looking at the context from what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how far back you want to go. Even like we start with time Avru and then Nashu.
Yeah.
Then that definitely sounds related to this.
Yeah.
Especially going to learn that Yer Hashem is being Musar Chachma.
Yeah.
Then Sinin Pachim there a.k.a.
Right.
With especially what you were just saying last of the like just trying to take shortcuts.
Yeah.
Like, even if you are not all like their a.k.a. really.
Yeah.
That it's just not going to end up all that well for you. And I don't have anything formulated. I'm just trying to look at it also now in context of those.
No, that definitely fits. And you're making me realize also that I don't think I said this yesterday. I think the previous pasuk of the thorns and traps are on the path of a person fits in with your idea also. Like that's just going to be a part of life. Like there are going to be thorns and derech ikesh. No, I'm sorry. The pasuk says derech ikesh on the path of the crooked person. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more of the chazal that we quoted of hakol b'dei shemayim chutz misinim pachim. Everything is in the hands of heaven except for thorns and obstacles. In the sense that that you're going to face thorns and obstacles no matter what, even if you're a Yirei Shemayim. Yeah.
To kind of balance this here. So
yeah.
It's more that the obstacles are only really obstacles for the people who don't know how to deal with them.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's right. Again, that's
you want to say that the crooked person just doesn't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
The thorns and.
Correct. Yeah. I was going to pull out the Stoic coin, but it's not in this jacket of the obstacles, the way. I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah. Okay, gam ki asking lo yasar mimena, even when he is old, he will not deviate from it. Bimei hanarus, this is the part that's close to what Chaim was saying. Bimei hanarus hadavar karov liyasher hateva. When you're young, then it is possible. I think here karov literally means likely, but I think he means it's like possible to straighten out a person's instinctual nature. Ulasakin hamidos, and to correct or perfect midos. Ulakabel hahergel, and to receive new habits. And when you grow old, you will not deviate from it. Kasher amrum b'musarim, like it says in Musarim. I think this is probably Mivchar HaPninim. No. Okay, I don't know which Musarim he's quoting. A lot of stuff here. Hahergel al kol davar shilton. Habit rules everything. Okay, that's the
origin of.
Yeah. V'imei hazikna rachok hadavar lahachlif hateva ulaha'atiko. But when you're old, it's very difficult or unlikely to change your nature and to transform it. Once you have made it into an actual habit, and you need great toil and a lot of hard work to transform it from its roots. So he's not saying it's impossible to change your habits when you're older. It's just extremely difficult. Therefore, it is necessary to rebuke. Oh, actually, sorry. Before we do this, let's just talk about this for 1 second here. So, why is this? Why is it harder to change your habits when you're older?
It's like it's like with Invisalign. You have retainers so that it doesn't form back.
Yeah. So I mean, I think part of it is, and maybe this is a cop out. Part of it, I think, is just the nature of habit is such that the longer you're in it, then the harder it is to change. I know that sounds like a non-answer, but I feel like just human nature is that like if I said like why are bones like that? I mean, you could give I don't know. Like I feel like it is just part of nature, but is there more than that? Like
it also.
I think there's also what you can say. Yeah.
Depending on the thing, it also becomes ingrained in your self-identity.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say also. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So even if it's something that you don't particularly like about yourself, it becomes part of how you view yourself, and you have to that's hard to change.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the big principles in James Clear's Atomic Habits. Is one of the keys to changing your habits is you change your identity. Also, that's the premise of Hilchos Deos. and that that the longer you behave in a certain way, the longer you self-identify that this is just a part of who I am, or this is who I am. Not if you're saying it's a part of who I am, that's already a level. If you say this is who I am, like I am just a lazy person, or I am just an ambitious person, or I am just like, you know. So I think. And I think the youth not only lacks that, but I think the youth, because of the way society treats the youth, is more open to the idea that like I'm figuring out who I am. You know, not that youths don't fall into this category, but like there is more of an awareness that like I can be whoever I want to be, which has its own problems. You know, like that could go too far and lead you to bad decisions as well. But like, you know, I think in terms of habit forming and self-identity forming, then there's more flexibility for the youth.
I think it's another factor, which is how other people view you.
Yes, that's also true. Right.
And they're gonna keep expecting you to be the same way.
Yeah.
And they might even look through things to keep it that way.
Right.
And like I remember hearing about like cases of people who were alcoholics and like started recovering, and then like their family members started like accidentally offering them alcohol because that was like part of how their like part of their dynamics were, that like, you know, like that, you know, having like alcoholic husband or dad, you know, like where like they didn't know how to function when that changed. So
that's good. That's a good point.
I mean, just another point is that, you know, it's also a lot of it's also subconscious. Like he's just, you know, that's why it's hard to break out of it, because like he's been doing this for so long. It becomes, you know, it's more difficult to break out of the subconscious.
Did Isaac say this? I think you guys said that at the end of what you were just saying, but that when you have like a habit, it's the only way you know how to do the thing. Is that what he was saying?
I think it's included in what you were saying. I forgot if you said that exact same thing. I just want to give a practical application here, which I realized when I was thinking about this morning, is I think that when you're in your yeshiva years, I think that there is a feeling that what you're doing, well, this is a true feeling, by the way, but there's a feeling that what your main goal here is to gain knowledge and gain skills. Okay, and that's true. However, there is something else that you're doing, which is you are practicing habits of lifelong learning. Okay, so let's say, for example, you are a person who does not. Obviously, the clear expectation is that you're coming to Seder and like going to shiur every day, right? And let's say you're doing the cues every day, right? So you might think that what I'm doing is I am practicing, gaining knowledge and practicing skills, and you're therefore going to think, let's say you miss a day, right? So you're going to think I'm only lacking quantitatively, right? Like instead of doing it 4 days a week, I did it 3 days this week. But here's the disastrous part, is you're training yourself to not be consistent. And that's a qualitative change. So, and when you go and you show up for morning Seder and for shiur and you do your bikios every day, no matter what, that's why they call it kovea itim latorah. It's not kavua if it's not kavua. Like, you know, it has to be established. And you know, again, if you're deathly ill, that's one thing, or like an emergency comes up. But like if in your yeshiva years you're inconsistent, then God help you when you get out of yeshiva, because there's no way you can be inconsistent in your yeshiva years and then become consistent when you're out of yeshiva. It's just not going to happen, you know. So you're practicing consistency, which is why like dragging yourself to shiur, even if you are not like in the headspace for it or whatever, or like forcing yourself to go to your bikiyos kavrusa when you're not, you know, when you're both not in the mood for it, even if your skills and your knowledge suffer, you're practicing the habit of consistency, which is going to allow you to be able to do that when you leave yeshiva, you know. Yeah, so I thought that was a point that Meiri did saying. Okay. Aval bimei hazikna. Oh, we said that already. Okay. The alkein nischayvu b'tochachas na'ar. That's why you need to give tochacha to the na'ar, which is what I guess I just did. Ki ein koach. Tochacha is too harsh of a term. I was just saying like life advice, but whatever. Ki ein koach kli sichlo shalim. You're
giving discipline.
Discipline, yeah, discipline. Not rebuke. Yeah. Ki ein koach. And I think that there's a distinction there, meaning that tochacha to me implies that you're talking to someone who made the mistake, you know, like, and you're straightening them out. Musar as discipline is just Mishleic advice. That was what I was giving, just to clarify. Okay, I'm not like making accusations, whatever. Because the youth's intellectual faculties are not developed yet. And the nature, he has a nature, an instinctual nature, and he cannot rebuke himself. If he makes his nature and actions into habit, into actual habit, then when he gets to the time of development, sichla, of his intellect, his intellect, he'll be too weary to reverse his habit and to fix his nature. Therefore, the father and mother are obligated to help the youth with their intellects, and to correct his nature in his days of his youth, before habit can dominate him. So that's an interesting model for parenting, right? The kid doesn't have an intellect, full intellect yet, and his habits are so flexible. The parents, their habits might be fixed, but they have an intellect, so they can like lend their intellect to the kid and help him to establish the right habits, so that when his intellect does develop, then he'll be on the right path. Yeah. Say it again. Steel sharpens steel. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to kind of read this last part fast because we're already over time. Secondly, at the time when he's being raised, which is in the time of youth, they can fix his nature better. That's what I just said. I knew he says this. We bring this from the mushal of a growth, a branch. V'nismach. Oh, that's all he says. The mushal of a branch. I think that's a well-known mushal, right? That you can, let's see if he says it here. So if anaf eight, the branch of a tree. Okay, fine. You said it already. We don't need to say it again. He doesn't need to say it. It juxtaposes this with the thing of thorns and traps, or sorry, he translated as obstacles. Thorns and obstacles are in the path of the crooked one. It's proper to teach and train the youth in this mentality or in this knowledge, because that will lead him to all perfections, like you said from the a.k.a. Yeah, okay, a lot of good ideas here. Yeah, so I'm not going to attempt to summarize them right now, but all right, good pasuk. There's a reason why this is one of the most quoted pasukim. Yeah, I'm sure there's much more in other mafarshim.
There's a chat in there.
Oh yeah, I never read the chat.
Oh shit.
Oh,
yeah. Can you? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, for Rebbe's, yeah, but you gotta listen to it though. Yeah. All right. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Training yourself to be